Hello friends, good evening. So now let's begin with the yesterday's pending topic. One chapter was pending. We'll finish off that and move on to the next class 10th NCERT. Plus we'll also have an eye upon the 11th NCERT as such. So today many areas we're going to cover one by one. So let's start these areas as such. So initially speaking, the only chapter which was pending here was based on the topic called as rights. One second friends. Yes, so life without the aspect of rights, that is the topic which we need to cover. Democratic rights, that is a chapter they have given here. So in this chapter we will deal about the questions on the aspect of how beautifully the rights are being codified, and India is one country in the world where they have given an elaborate right in the name of fundamental rights which has been guaranteed to the citizens of this nation. So in this area, let's cover this topic in a detailed perspective one by one. Let me start with the core content as such. And before going into that area, just have a look upon the aspect of citizens' right in case of Saudi Arabia, because we all are aware of how this Saudi Arabia functions. So in this perspective, let's see how they are going. The country is ruled by a hereditary king. Therefore, there is no great amount of choice for the person to change the ruler. The king selects the legislature as well as the executive. He appoints the judges and can change any of their decision. Entire right is been given to him, and citizens cannot form political parties over there. There is no religious right given to them. Even every citizen is required to be a Muslim, and non-Muslim residents can follow their religion in private but not in public. You just imagine a country without having these things, how worst it is, because they will never permit any of your right what you are enjoying in case of India. So the constitutional right what has been guaranteed in case of India is a peculiar thing, and such things we cannot find in other parts of the world as such. Next one, please understand, women are being subjected to so many restrictions. The testimony of one man is considered equal to that of two women. So for example, when somebody is being asked to come and give a witness, if they're asking one man to come, if a man is not able to come, and if in that place a woman wants to replace that, definitely speaking, there needs to be at least two women to replace a single man. That much of discrimination we find in case of these country. Therefore, Indian democracy has given a great amount of right, which we will start as of now. I'm sorry. Rights in democracy. So here, what are generally the term rights, how to as such connect with the Constitution of India? In this, please understand, rights are the claims over other fellow being, over a society, over the government. So upon the other fellow being, upon the society, upon the government, in these three areas, no one shall be subjected to discrimination, and that is being labeled as rights here. So rights are highly considered to be a great amount of protection for a man to lead a life with dignity as such. And then on the other hand, see, they have given some stories and all, Guantanamo Bay, what happened, all those things. That doesn't matter in case of prelims examination, so we can safely ignore all those areas. And here, just have a look on these things. Rights are reasonable claim of a person recognized by society and sanctioned by law. For example, you have a fundamental right against untouchability. When that right somebody is practicing against you, when they are creating some irritation against you, you have a right to oppose it. On the other hand, when such a right is getting as such misused by others, you have a right to approach the court or any other organ, and that will do the remedy whatever is required. And India, we have so many rights which are being guaranteed as such, which we will deal one by one in a detailed perspective as such. So here it is generally speaking, government is having the mandate to protect the rights of citizen. That point they have clearly mentioned in this area. The government should protect the citizens' right in such a situation. But generally speaking, the element of rights needs to be clearly codified so that there is no misuse of rights which takes place in any country as such. And in India, we have a detailed provision in that area which we will begin in this chapter called as rights. And to start with, rights in the Indian Constitution, and here we have a set of rights which is called as fundamental right. So originally we had 7 fundamental rights. Now we are having only 6 fundamental rights in total. So the number of rights available as of now are only 6 as such. So what and all we are having? Right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, religious right, cultural and minority rights, right to constitutional remedy. These rights are there. Originally we had a right which is called as right to property, but right now that particular right has been removed from the list of fundamental rights. Therefore that right doesn't exist as of now. So totally speaking, now we are having only 6 fundamental rights. In that, first one, right to equality. So in the eyes of law, everyone should be treated equally. You see these line, the person in India, equality before law or equal protection of law. It means that the law applies to everyone. That is what we call it as rule of law. And this term, rule of law, is very important. This term was coined by A.V. Dicey, D-I-C-E-Y. That is the man who has given the idea on rule of law. And rule of law is the foundation of any democracy. That means no person is above the law. You see, such a beautiful statement it is. Nobody is above the law and everyone are being treated with equality, and that is where right to equality comes into picture. In this area, we need to be very specific. For example, when they speak on the aspect of equality, it means the element of equality applies to all the citizens who are being subjected to obedience of law. If you violate the law, you can be treated with the iron hand that is required. Otherwise speaking, right to equality is considered to be a proper law which cannot be subjected to avoidance. In this area, the basic position is further clarified in the constitution by spelling out some implications of right to equality. The government shall not discriminate against the citizens on any of the ground. So article 15, no discrimination. So article 14 says right to equality. Article 15, no discrimination in terms of common area, public, like a hotel, a restaurant, or anything for that matter, a well, a tank, pond, whatever it is, people should not be subjected to discrimination. This is very much essential from the aspect of ensuring right to equality, and this the government must mandate. And then article 16, it says that every citizen is having a right to have participation in the employment or opportunity in the government. You can't deny them. So employment opportunity must be given to all the members. Article 16 comes and confirms this message to a larger extent. And then you begin with the aspect of the reservation. So sometimes speaking, for backward class member, for the SC, ST, for women, for physically challenged people, we can give reservation, and that doesn't mean there is any amount of restriction on the government to empower a weaker section. So these are the inputs which are generally available as such. Additionally speaking, there is one more content also in which we are not supposed to practice untouchability, because untouchability here is a great amount of pain and great amount of stigma attached with the people as such. When people are being subjected to untouchability, it will create a great amount of uproar, and to avoid that, Government of India under Article 17 says untouchability has been strictly abolished in case of India. So we cannot practice untouchability, and that can never be allowed. You see, on those days, tea stall used to have 2 tumbler system. A barber will not involve in the act of shaving for a person who comes from Dalit community. Dalit students cannot drink water where others are drinking. Dalit groom were not allowed to ride the horse because that shows a symbol of supremacy. A Dalit will not be permitted, and Dalit cannot use a hand pump. If at all they are using a hand pump, that will be subjected to a complete amount of wash as such. Then they are having right to freedom. In this, totally speaking, we are subjected to 6 rights as such, and for that there is a small hint to remember, which I will tell you shortly. Yes, so here generally we are subjected to 6 rights. So whatever they have mentioned there, I'll tell you. We are having S, A, M, R, P. One second. S, A, M, R, P. Remember this, MRP, no, maximum price, Samarpa. So right to speech, right to assembly, right to association, right to movement, right to residence, right to profession. These rights are being guaranteed in case of Indian constitution, and that cannot be denied. You just see here, we are having right to speech and expression, and we have a right to assembly, and we have a right to as such go and participate in some areas where there is a great amount of liberty given, and we have a right to movement, we have a right to residence, and we have a right to practice. These rights are getting guaranteed, and these are being constitutionally mandated, so that nobody can deprive these rights to a large extent, right? Okay, so citizens have a right to hold meeting, but one condition is that these rights are not absolute in nature, because whenever there is a right where people come and meet and do some amount of rally, it should be subjected to reasonable restriction. You cannot involve in things which are highly dangerous to the welfare of society. And then you have a right to travel across the length and breadth of India, that cannot be subjected to any question. And here they say that these rights are quintessential for a man to lead a life of extreme disciplined nature. And then next you have a very important right called as Article 21, which is called as right to life and personal liberty. If you ask me, in the entire Constitution of India, this article is very much warranted, and relating to that we have some provisions also. As generally they say, the question relating to the aspect of arrest of a person or anything you do that needs a great amount of clarity. You can't just like that behave in the way you need. For example, Article 20, before arresting a person, what you are supposed to do. Suppose for example, if you want to arrest, you need a proper amount of document to arrest a person. Suppose if you arrest a person, after arrest you have to produce him before the nearest magistrate within 24 hours of time, excluding the travel time, and the arrested person is having a right to engage his lawyer and speak to his family members. These and all are rights which are being mentioned in the Constitution of India itself. Again, coming to Article 23, right against exploitation, a wonderful right. They say that we have abolished something called as beggar system. Beggar system is nothing but it is equivalent to forced labor, where a man is being subjected to forced labor, and for that the payment will be very minimal. And in case of India, Article 23, we have also abolished trafficking as such. The Constitution here says trafficking is getting completely abolished, which itself indicates that there is a great amount of activity where the entire task of buying and selling human being got completely prohibited. And then coming to Article 24, they have abolished the aspect of child labor, which is again a big menace in the Indian society. Now that got curbed to a large extent. Now coming on to the next one, right to freedom and religion. Article 25, 26, 27, 28. All these articles will have a detailed approach in this area, which is considered to be right to freedom of religion. So generally speaking, a man is being subjected to religious right. India is a secular country. Mahatma Gandhi has rightly said that India is a secular nation. Therefore, we cannot stop a person, or we cannot stop a person in terms of his aspect of the religion. Religion needs to have a great amount of control, and then the particular person is subjected to have the right of practice, profess and propagate the religion. Whatever he wants, he can do it, and their government cannot come and have any great amount of restriction. Additionally, Article 29 and 30 will give you cultural rights and educational right. A minority's culture needs to be preserved and protected. A minority is having the right to as such establish educational institution, and for that the state will definitely give a constitutional mandate. You just see this line, all minorities are having a right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. And here minority doesn't mean only religious minority at the national level. So it is also based on the different state where we have a right to establish these institutions. At last, sir, these many rights are there. If somebody is violating these rights, where can I go? And for that only we have something called as right to constitutional remedy. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has rightly said that this right is considered to be heart and soul of Indian Constitution. So if you ask among the fundamental right, which is the most important right, B.R. Ambedkar said Article 32, right to constitutional remedy. This cannot be subjected to violation. Now under this, a man can go and file a writ in the court. Normally when you have a grievances against the government, when you go and file a particular case, it will be called as writ. So here we can file this case in Supreme Court as well as the High Court. So only difference is that if you go to High Court, they have to take the fundamental right violation, because it is mandatory on their part to take it. If you go to High Court under Article 226, they can either take it or they can even refuse to entertain the petition relating to the fundamental rights violation. But in both the places, we can go and file the writ. And for this particular writ, generally the High Courts and Supreme Court are the only authority where a person can go and approach. Otherwise speaking, it is not being as such permitted. So in case of India, we are having some amount of thought that the right to freedom of press, right to information, right to education, like how they are saying, there are so many rights which needs to be included. So given the time and space, if more number of rights are getting inculcated into the fundamental right, that will make India a true democracy as such, right? So this is what we are aiming for. And some rights, what we are having is right to privacy. So in South Africa, they are giving right to environment, right to adequate housing, right to access of healthcare. These in India, it is there indirectly, but in case of South Africa, these are being mentioned as a right itself in their constitution, as they were the one who faced the racism and apartheid to a largest extent, right? So these are the input under this area in class 10 of this NCERT, class 9 of NCERT. And to begin with, let's start the 10th NCERT, democratic politics. Okay, so this chapter will begin with power sharing, the first chapter as such. See, these chapters are conveying only one louder message, dear students. Whenever these chapters are coming into picture, it is conveying a message that if you read these things and go for any book, Lakshmikant or whatever it is, definitely speaking, you will get a score which is highly unimaginable, because the fundamental story what they teach in these area are really awesome. Therefore, never ever ignore this book for any reason as such. So initially, as I say, they started with some stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka. We can ignore these things that are not required from the current class perspective point of view. So we can just move forward to know the main aspect of this chapter from our like UPSC's perspective. And for that, see, generally speaking, the question in this chapter is based on power sharing. So how to as such share the power and why the power sharing is required. In this, let's begin in this area. See the left hand side. Power sharing is good because it helps to reduce the possibility of conflict between social group. Whenever the power is getting shared, nobody will feel that one is superior and others are inferior. Just to bring this conviction or this confirmation, we are telling that power sharing is mandatory. Since social conflict often leads to violence and political instability, power sharing is a good way to ensure stability of political order. Imposing the will of majority over others may look like attractive option in the short run, but in the long run, it undermines the unity of the nation. Generally, a majority will should never ever be imposed upon the minority, because they will have a fear factor that this country doesn't suit their demand. So in this perspective, power sharing is required in first area because it will avoid the conflict. Number 2, see, tyranny of majority is not just oppressive for the minority, it often brings ruin to majority as well. So the majority community themselves also may get defeated when you keep on suppressing the minority to a large extent. And number 2, there is a second deep reason why we need the aspect of power sharing, because power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. In the absence of power sharing, democracy cannot be called as true democracy. For instance, we have something called as Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia. There and all, power will not be shared, and that cannot be called as a democracy. The same meaning holds good here. A democratic rule involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and who have to live with its effect. People have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. A legitimate government is one where citizens, through participation, acquire a stake in the system. You need to come and participate. You need to have a say. Otherwise, your particular government cannot be labeled as a true government wherein which democracy is being followed in right spirit. So power sharing is definitely required, and these are just again the stories what NCERT does to make the book look attractive. On the other hand, one basic principle of democracy is that people are the source of all political power. In a democracy, people rule themselves through the institutions of self-government. So at last, what is the message? People are the resource where power is being as such given to others. They are the base from where the power is being taken, and it is being followed by others to a larger extent. So these are the very basic areas where we discuss on the aspects of power. So power is all about how we carry forward these things and how the people are the one who give this power to a larger extent. So this area do just remember from examination point of view. And now moving on to the next one, how they are going by the aspect of power. In that, the first one is power is shared among different organs of government like legislative, executive, judiciary. And you see the term they are using here, it is called as horizontal distribution. What does it mean? Nobody is subjected to a vertical distribution. It is horizontal. All of them are in same line, and here each one of them are having separation of power. One cannot as such encroach upon the powers of others. That is bidden. For example, in case of India, have a look on this. Judges are appointed by the executive. They can check the functioning of executive or law made by legislature. This arrangement is called as checks and balances. One is appointing, others to just have a check on that, and this is again a strongest area to promote the spirit of the so-called power sharing. Number two, power can be shared among government at different level, like how we have state government, central government and the local government. In three perspective, the sharing of power is definitely possible. And number three, power can be shared among different social group such as religious and linguistic group. For example, religious and linguistic group, when they feel that they have a say in the government, they will feel that really they are empowered to a larger extent. Therefore, in this perspective, power sharing is definitely warranted. Number four, power sharing arrangement can be seen in way of political party, pressure group and movement control or influence those in power. So generally speaking, power sharing arrangement is being made in such a way that every one of them are having some or the other influence in the governmental decision making. If these are getting permitted, then truly speaking, it will not just be a hasty decision, rather it will be based on some amount of intuition, based on rationality, a law based on discussion and debate. It will not be just a one side show, rather it will be a show based on consensus. Please understand this line. In democracy, we have interest group, trader, businessman, industrialist, farmer, industrial worker, etc. When these many members are there, when they participate in the aspect of government, decisions will be taken to a finest extent, and this is what power sharing generally is all about. So this chapter will tell why we need a separation of the powers. Why one man cannot have all the power. If these are being understood in a right perspective, then obviously speaking, this will make the aspect of our understanding on this topic pretty well clear and comfortable. And now moving on to the next one, that is the issue on the aspect of federalism, right? So chapter number 2, federalism. Sir, what is federalism? Federalism is all about the aspect of how we are having the division of power, how the power is getting divided in general, and that is where federalism steps into picture. And now let's have a detailed look on the aspect of federalism and how federalism goes in understanding the basic concepts. Now, when we speak on the aspects of federalism, it means division of power. So, when the power is getting divided on equal footing, it is called as horizontal federalism. So, just dividing the power on equal parameter. When you have vertical parameter, someone will be on the top, other in the middle, others in the bottom. This indicates that to a largest extent, federalism is a simple principle based on division, how the power is getting divided. Now we will have a detailed look in this chapter. To begin with, let's start the area on the aspect of federalism. And here, first thing, please understand, federalism is a system of government in which power is divided between a central authority and various constituent unit of the country. It can be state government, it can be local government, or any government for that matter. Whenever from one authority the power is getting divided, that is where federalism comes. See students, these definitions are being given only to tell that this is what UPSC mains exam should look like. If you write like this, then you will be definitely rewarded the best mark what UPSC will award for a question. For that only the effort is being made to bring the clarity on how to write the answer. Next one is the government for entire country that is usually responsible for few subjects of common nation. So central government versus state government. One will take care of entire India, others will be given a divided subject, so that both of them are working hand in hand for the growth and development of a particular nation. So here power is getting divided in this perspective. Next one, how the element of federalism works. These inputs we need to know. Number one, there are two or more level. In India we have three tier: central government, state government, local government. So point number one very clear. Point number two, different tiers of government govern the same citizen, but each are having their own jurisdiction, where they can make a law, where they cannot make a law. Each one of them are having their own limitation. Number three, the jurisdiction of the respective tiers or level or tiers of government are specified in the constitution. So existence and authority of each tier of government is constitutionally guaranteed. So nobody can come and encroach upon the right. It has been mentioned very clearly. So federalism happens to a comfortable zone. Number four, the fundamental provisions of constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by one level of government. Sometimes if you want to make an amendment that needs a great amount of clarification, without doing that amendment is not possible. And then number five, the courts are having the power to interpret the constitution, and they have a right to decide which is rightly applicable and what is the exact meaning. And for sixth point, source for revenue of each level of government are clearly specified. How they can make money legally and how they can manage their expenditure is getting a legal amount of clear cut definition. And seventh one, the federal system has dual role, safeguarding and promoting the unity of the country, at the same time accommodating regional diversity. So they are taking care of the national issue plus regional issue. As these two are there put together, it conveys a message that it is doing the best to promote the aspect of stability. This is what the so-called aspect of federalism is working. And then to just move on in this area, we need to know how it is happening, how this particular federalism takes place. For this, two terms are coming as such. One is called as coming together federation, holding together federation. So two terms which is looking slightly new, but we will have an idea what this is called as such. The first route involves independent states coming together to form a bigger unit by pooling the sovereignty and increasing their security. It is called as coming together. So America, Switzerland, Australia, these are example coming together. On the other hand, India, Spain, Belgium are called as holding together federation. What is holding together? We start as such holding each and everyone. It is not different states came together. Existing states are now being held together, and this type of federation conveys a message that India is being subjected to second category and not the first category in terms of division of power. And now, what makes India a federal country? For that, simply speaking, we can just look at this point. Let us begin with the constitution. India emerged as an independent nation after a painful and bloody partition. So much of loss of life we faced. Soon after independence, several princely states became a part of the country. The constitution declared India as a union of states. Although it did not use the word federation, the Indian Union is based on the principle of federalism. Division of power is there, but nowhere we are a federation. It is not that we have any agreement where states are together, but simply speaking, we are considered to be a particular nation where we have followed the principles of federalism. And then just to confirm this message, we have division of power getting clarified in these three areas: state list, union list, concurrent list. The law making power has been divided. Something has been given to the center, union list. 100 items are there. Only the center can make a law in these areas. Then we have state list. 61 items are there. Only state legislatures can make a law in these areas. Then we have concurrent list. State and center, both of them can make a law. At last, when both of them make a law, the law of the center will prevail over the law made by the state as such. Now, the next question comes. Sir, suppose there is any item which is not there in the state list, central list, concurrent list, what you will call that? That will be labeled as residuary subject. Residuary means what? Leftover. It will be labeled as leftover subject, and that subject will be power, or that will be handed over to the central government to make law. So central government alone will make a law based on the residuary item. State government will not have a say in these areas as such. Right. Now here in case of India, we are being subjected to a great amount of the federation, where we have seen that it is not giving a equal amount of power to all the ingredients of a given country. All the constituent ingredients, what we call as a state, are not being given equal power. Some are given more power, some are given lesser power. Therefore, we noted from the above that most federations are formed by holding together, does not give equal status. Therefore, all the states in India does not have equal power. Some are given more status, more power. Article 371. Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Sikkim, Mizoram, all these are having a great amount of special power because they have the mandate that they are backward state. Central government is dutifully empowered to preserve and protect these states to a larger extent. That is the reason all states are not given equal protection. Some are given more than the others. And there are UT like Chandigarh, Lakshadweep or the capital city of Delhi, which are called as UT, these territories do not have power of a state. The central government will come and rule them. That is why in case of India, we don't find any big amount of uniformity. And if at all you want to change something from union list to state list to concurrent list, you need the consent of 50% of state legislatures in India plus the parliamentary permission. Then only you can reform it. So that easily bringing a change in the particular list is not possible in India. There is some amount of security or safeguard which has been given to the so-called states and the center and the residuary power and the concurrent list to a large extent, that easily from one list to another we can't change the provisions, which is again a big amount of security what the constitution has given. And then how to divide the state? That is a big question. What was there in the minds of the lawmakers? Whether we can divide the states based on the language or some other criteria, that was the topic. And for that, linguistic state is again considered to be the first and major test for democratic politics in our country. There was a big amount of debate that we can create linguistic states based on the language, but states based on language may not give a same amount of uniformity. Sometimes speaking, we may have some amount of up and down which is not that so healthy. Therefore, in this area, we can go by the aspect of the creation of state not only based on the language but also based on other criteria like culture, ethnicity, geography, and these are conveying the message that India tries to accommodate each and every person demand, which itself is a manifestation that India is truly following the principle of federalism. And then the element of the experience shows that formation of linguistic states has made India highly united. We thought when you create state based on the language, they will get divided. But the reality is when you create a state based on the language, it was more in terms of connecting all the state and bringing unity rather than getting split up into various organs. Number 2, a second test of Indian Federation is language policy. Our government or our constitution does not have any language called as the national language. Hindi was identified as official language just because 40% of people speak Hindi, we gave that status. Otherwise speaking, Hindi along with English happens to be the communication language. We nowhere have given one language as national language. You see how careful the makers of constitution are. If you declare Hindi to be the national language, it will have an opinion that other languages are not national language. Therefore, that was again subjected to an act of curtailment. According to the constitution, the use of English for official purpose was to stop in 1965. However, many non-Hindi speaking states demanded that the use of English continue, and Tamil Nadu government also took a very violent protest against all those things. Therefore, English along with Hindi is getting continued even till today to a larger extent. And now, the center-state relation, how it is going on. Some parties will be there in the state, some will be there in center, both will be ruling together. But after some point of time, single party in center is not able to form the government. They are not able to bring any big amount of reform and they are finding too tough to form the government as such. So what to do? That was the biggest question, and for that we got the reply called as coalition government. Sir, what do you mean by coalition government? Coalition government is many small parties will come together to form the government, because one party cannot be the single largest party with a thumping majority to form the government. Therefore, this issue is now emerging since 1990, because after 1990 there was a great amount of regional party emergence in India, which created these coalition parties to a largest extent. Next one. Right, so all these are facts as such which we can just go through. And now coming on to the core area, that is decentralization in case of India. So what do you mean by decentralization? How it is happening? So centralization means concentration of authority. Decentralization means it is something wherein which the particular activity or the particular task will be divided and given to various organs, so that the people do not have any amount of adverse opinion or negative opinion that we are not able to participate in the decision making of this nation. Decision making of this nation needs people participation. If that is not getting guaranteed, therefore to ensure that India went for decentralization, there is a need for power sharing within the state. Federal power sharing in India needs another tier of government below the state government. Therefore we got something called as local government. So local government came into power only because state government was unable to as such accommodate everyone's demand. That's the reason we got the local government. When power is taken away from the center and state and given to local government, it is called as decentralization. See, now we are pretty well clear now what is decentralization. Where the powers were being held by one, now it is being given to 2 or 3 members. So when you divide and give the powers to many, it will give a comfortable opinion that the people are able to enjoy the perspectives of power to a larger extent. This is what we have in this area, which is considered to be the aspect of the so-called Indian federalism model. On the other hand, the Indian federalism is not something what has been said orally. It has been recognized in the Constitution of India also. That is why we are having the 73rd and 74th Amendment, which is giving the constitutional status to third tier of democracy, otherwise called as local government. In this, now it is constitutionally mandatory to hold regular elections to local body, and now we are having reserved seats in case of the local body. 1/3 seats are given for women. An independent state election commission is getting constituted. The state governments are required to share the power and revenue with the local government. Now, really speaking, in case of India, decentralization kick-started with the emergence of the so-called local government. And here we had the members who are called as Panch and Sarpanch. The members in case of the Panchayat Samiti will be called as Panch, and the head will be called as Sarpanch, the Panchayat president as such. And this particular body is real impact of how grassroots level democracy works in case of India, and this is how the power sharing in India has taken place. And please understand, the new system of local government, where we have given the powers to the people to a large extent, is considered to be the largest experiment in democracy conducted anywhere in the world. And as a matter of fact, 36 lakh elected representatives are found in case of panchayat and municipality. Women are able to come and voice out their grievances. These issues which were not there earlier, today it has become an open information, which really ensures that Indian government has gone far ahead in bringing the real aspect of how the power sharing and the element of decentralization is working not only in paper but also in true spirit to a largest extent, right? Okay. Next one, we will deal with the next chapter, which is considered to be the chapter based on political parties. It's a very important chapter because they're asking questions in this area. In prelims exam and mains exam also, we'll have a look on this topic. When you have the test of this NCERT based question papers, or when you have the like UPSC question for the past 10 years and compare with NCERT, you will come to a conclusion that I must read NCERT. Without that, you cannot as such have any amount of success. And to just give information, please understand, there is commencement of this option and GS course, which is going to have the last date as 30th June 2023, and you have a flat 25% discount for this particular scheme, and we'll cover all the syllabus and live classes will happen, and you'll be having end-to-end preparation in this area. For queries and clarification, kindly contact Sriram's IAS and they will assist you in terms of having this admission process. Right. And to start here, we have something called as political parties. Political parties in case of India, how it is going on and how we divide the parties, why we need a party. See, to begin with, imagine if there is no political party in India. All individual candidates are there one by one and each person is doing their own work. In this perspective, there will be no amount of comfort available. When there is no amount of comfort available, why? Because all different candidate, no big agenda, no big policy, nothing will happen. They will work based on their own whims and fancy. That we can't permit. No, that is the reason we say that in our present model, we have this political party so that their ideology, if people like it, can definitely create the emergence of a stable and a happy government as such. Right. So now, here having the aspect of political parties, and political parties are one of the most visible institutions in the democracy. Wherever you go in India, you will find political party symbol, the member name, the founder name, their photo, their image, everything. All these things conveys a louder message that in case of India, political parties are really doing a great amount of penetration and people have really fall into the political party in terms of their ideology, which makes them highly comfortable. In this perspective, to begin with, just see here, parties have become identified with social and political division. So social division means based on society, how members are divided. It can be caste, religion, whatever it is. And political division, leftist, rightist, centrist party, regional party, etc. These are the different perspectives in which the parties got as such emerged. And to start with this chapter, we are having the message that is a political party is a group of people who come together to contest election and hold power in the government. They agree on some policies and program for the society with a view to promote the collective good. So political parties are generally subjected to some amount of ideology. That ideology only they sell to public. If people like it, by default they come to the power and rule the government for next 5 years. Therefore, the parties reflect fundamental division of society. Parties are about a part of society and thus involve partisan group. So what is partisan? See, partisan is something where you take a stand. Whether it is right or wrong, we don't know, but you take a stand and you stick on to that comfortably and you never ever change as such. That is how the political parties function. Just a second. Yeah, okay. So political parties always take a stand and that is again considered to be their own ideology. If people prefer, if people like it, they can go ahead. Otherwise, the party will not find victory. Now, what are the functions of political party? It's a very basic thing, no? But just if you know these things, GS2 answer on political parties can be answered very comfortable. And now we are having the parties. First task for a party is to contest the election. They'll come and contest the election. If they are having a good amount of victory, they will be the winner. Otherwise, they will become opposition party. Number 2, political parties will put forward different policies and program and voter choose from them. If we come to power, we will do this. If we come to power, we will achieve this. These are their policies and program. We have a scheme for this. They will release the manifesto. That is the political manifesto. And they will give that if we come to power, all these will be achieved to a large extent. If these and all people believe and if they think that this are possible, then the particular person or the party will be the winning party and they will be having the right to form the government. Then parties play a decisive role in making law of the country. Political parties, they will be deciding in lawmaking. Even when they are not in power, they have a right to create a particular law by creating a statewide hartal protest to ensure that the laws are being made only to accommodate the demand of common man. For example, in case of India, Farm Bill was introduced. the three legislation. Then people protested, opposition party protested. At last these bills were withdrawn. So even they have a law, even they have a right to amend the law in terms of creating a particular situation wherein which if the law is not in pro people, that will be opposed completely. Parties form and run the government. The moment they get the victory, they have a right to run the affairs of the government. Parties shape the public opinion. For example, in Tamil Nadu, the parties have installed Dravidian ideology in which they are opposing Hindi. That is wrong, because a particular language cannot be opposed, but that is what the party is doing to a large extent. Then party provide people access to government machinery and welfare scheme implemented by the government. So generally speaking, we can go and ask a local leader, what happened to this, why this is not there. In this area, governmental machinery, services of the government, programs of the government, whatever they have done for just getting the benefit, a party is really helping them to a largest extent. And now, why we need a party? Every candidate, if he is winning in the independent manner, nobody will be able to make any promise. The government will be formed, all will be having the right, but at last everything will be uncertain. Nothing will be having any amount of practical implication. Therefore, to avoid all these things only, we are having the political party coming into picture, as at least some ideology of them will be getting reflected. The rise of political party is seen as a response of representative democracy. So people, they just come and give idea that come on, you go and run the government, you do these things. This representative government is getting established only based on the political parties in case of India. And now, how parties are there? Generally speaking, in certain countries where only one person will be subjected to a great amount of the power, and that great amount of power will be given only to one individual. Other than that, nothing will happen. So in this perspective, for example, China, Communist Party of China, only party allowed. Others cannot even come and register their political party. In case of North Korea, we have a great ruler, no, against that person, nobody can come and contest. So whatever he says will become the final one. And we cannot oppose the ruler to any extent. In this criteria, it is called as one party system, and that is not a principal feature of democracy. On the other hand, we cannot consider one party as a good option because it is not democratic. At least two should be there to call a political party as a democratic institution. And here, the two main parties will be having a serious chance of winning the seat, and such a party system is called as two-party system. If you take America, they have two-party system. One is called as the method on the Republican Party. On the other hand, we are having Democratic Party. Republican Party and Democratic Party are the two parties which are generally available in case of US. On the other hand, if you take the Indian example, you are being subjected to multi-party system. It is not like how they practice in case of other nations. In India, we have a peculiar model where we go by multi-party system. Sir, what is multi-party system? Anybody can come and register their political party if they fulfill the criteria and contest for election. We have thrown open for each and every person. We never restrict these things to any extent as such. So Indian party system is labeled as multi-party system. On the other hand, we are being subjected to the national parties in India. What is national parties? So there are some country-wide parties who are called as national party because they fulfill the criteria what has been prescribed by the Election Commission of India to qualify for the so-called national party status. And they are being given a unique status, and they are being given some prime time in the government channel to speak about their political party, and they enjoy a particular land being given for constructing their political party office. These and all are the facilities given to national party, and these facilities ensure that these privileges are being given the moment they get recognized status after fulfilling the criteria. And you have some criteria. For example, 6% of the vote in the election of a state and 2 seats is recognized for a state party. So 6% of vote and just 2 seats in the MLA. If you get it, you will become a state party. On the other hand, a party which is getting 6% of vote and in 4 seats, from 4 state, then obviously they become a national party. So Election Commission of India will give criteria. You need to fulfill that. If you fail to fulfill that, then your particular party national party status will be removed. See, in this prelims and mains, I'll give you one small insight. Please remember, if you are not fulfilling the criteria, they will not deregister your party. They will not tell that your party doesn't have a right to stay here. They will only tell that the status of national party will be withdrawn from your particular party. And in case of India, we have All India Trinamool Congress, Bahujan Samaj Party, Communist Party of India, BJP, CPIM, Indian National Congress, NCP. As on date, only these 7 parties are being labelled as national parties in India. And state parties. State parties are generally considered to be the parties who try to fulfill the regional aspiration, and here these are also subjected to some amount of criteria, like we have this Biju Janata Dal, Sikkim Democratic Front, Mizo National Front, DMK, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, then we have Rashtriya Janata Dal. All these parties, when they are functioning in terms of national level, they also function in terms of state level the moment they lose their status. If you lose your status of national party, you may become a state party. If you fulfill that, even that when you lose, you will be only called as registered party. That registered national, registered state party, that status will be removed the moment you do not fulfill the criteria. This says that only when people accept you, give the vote, and you are able to bring a representative, you will be labelled as a national or a state party. Otherwise, that status will be withdrawn from your particular party. Since 1996, nearly every one of the state parties has got opportunity to be in the national coalition. This has again strengthened the aspect of Indian democracy to a very large extent than what we imagine. First thing, what are the challenges we have? Political parties are there. What are the challenges? Negatives we are having, apprehensions we are having. The first challenge is that lack of internal democracy. Within the political party, there is no internal democracy. That means they don't work on the principle of democracy. Free and fair method of administration never takes place. Rather, people do it based on their own whims and fancy, which is seen as a negative thing. Number 2, dynastic succession is a major problem in the regional party. Only one family will start having the power and they'll keep on continuing, and they will never go for power sharing. And number 3, money and muscle power will play a major role. Normally speaking, a common man cannot do, which these parties can do. Number 4, very often parties do not seem to give meaningful choice to the voter. So at times they are being subjected to great amount of issue where the right person or the one who comes to power doesn't fulfill the demand of the common man to a large extent. So what we can do, how can the parties be formed? So the moment they are subjected to the party ideology, they get registered with the Election Commission of India and they become a party. On the other hand, suppose after joining a party, if they want to come out, it is called as defection. Defection means just after getting elected, you wanted to give your allegiance to some other party, which is called as defection, and that is highly subjected to a punishable act in case of India. And therefore, even Supreme Court is now trying to bring some conditions to bring transparency in the members. A member who is contesting for MP or MLA has to give an affidavit, and they have given a statement that you should not have any amount of criminal background. These and all are the expectations, but we do not know what is the truth and how the people are giving the true information to the government when they are contesting for the elections as such. So these informations kindly cover, and now let's have the last chapter in this area, which is called as the chapter on outcomes of democracy, whether it has given success or failure. Please understand, never ever write Indian democracy has failed miserably, because democracy only gave you the right to speak on this. When you write democracy didn't do anything properly, you are highly against the government. Don't tell you're going to work in the government. That statement must be avoided. Democracy has given equality and it has enhanced the dignity, improves the quality of life. Everything democracy has done. Everything democracy has done to a large extent. But it's still democracy, whether failed or successful, we need to have a look on this. Democracy is basically on the ideas of deliberation, negotiation. We sit, we talk, we discuss, and then we come to a conclusion. This is what democracy is. And this democracy is just greatly based on the principle of equality. And here the element of question of democracy success is based on the subject happiness. If people are really happy, democracy has made a vibrant success. Now look at the other side. Democracy ensures that decision making will be based on norms and procedure. So a citizen wants to know if decision was taken through the correct procedure, can find this out. She has the right and means to examine the process of decision making. This is known as transparency. They're extremely transparent, and this transparency is a basic nature which promotes the aspect of democracy to be a very successful and vibrant tool. On the other hand, please ensure that the element of democracy is ensuring that it will do justice to everyone, and it should be completely free of corruption. Though the truth is slightly differing, the question of democracy is highly successful. There is one respect in which democratic government is certainly better than other, because democratic government is legitimate government. It can be slow, but it is not completely wrong. Democratic government is people's government. That is the reason throughout the world the idea of democracy is being widely accepted by many members to a largest extent. In this area, let's see the other dimensions. Please understand reduction of inequality and poverty. Democracies are based on political equality. All individuals have equal way electing the representative. And here in actual life, democracy do not appear to be very successful in reducing economic inequality. Poor will be there. That is not because of democracy, it is because of administration. Administrative apathy is the reason for the failure of democracy and not the other way around like what we think. So this area needs a complete overhaul. On the other hand, in the present democracy, we try to accommodate each and every person's demand. So democracy cannot be subjected to a negative opinion. And democracy stands much superior to any other form of government. Every individual wants to receive respect from fellow being, and this is ensured only by democracy. In a non-democratic setup, unacceptability would not have legal basis. Even when you don't like something, you have to go by that. And here the question of democracy in India has strengthened the claim of disadvantaged and discriminated people to a very large extent. What is most distinctive about democracy is that its examination never gets over. Always it is thrown open for people to come and have a say on whether it is right or wrong. That itself ensures that democracy is highly transparent and open, right? So tomorrow we will see the aspect of 11th NCERT, our constitution at work, and try to have the input being covered from UPSC's point of view. Thank you.